Okay, I'm live here. Hello, everyone. I am live at this stream because the scheduled stream I had scheduled is not working. So what I'm going to do is send this stream over to my invite and to some other people, and then we will get the live stream going over here. So my apologies to everyone for the inconvenience, but we will get the live stream started as soon as possible. So my apologies for that. And my apologies if the first few minutes of this are just sort of quiet while I update things. But thank you for being here, everyone. Just making a couple of updates. One minute. Clean this a little. Lights a bit. You have to go into the chat and do a new one as well. Hello, glad to see people are coming in. My apologies for that. So we will get going in just a second. And I will have to update other stuff later, I suppose, because I closed my tweet, so that's fine. So that's just a couple of minutes while we get everybody to catch up. But hello again, and welcome to the first live stream for Nelly's by Night. Evening of Vampire and the Masquerade in Toronto. I'm Nicole, and I am here to kind of run through a few of the mechanics and some of the meta techniques that we'll be using when we get to playing Nelly's by Night. I'm going to give just a couple more minutes. As I explained at the top of this, we had a bit of an issue with the scheduled live stream, so we're just going to wait for some people to catch up and find out what's going on. And my apologies for the confusion, because that kind of sucks that we were unable to get the live stream started. Hey, are you in there? Okay, cool. Cool. Awesome. So again, my apologies that started late. And as I said earlier, I did actually test everything out earlier today. I guess just sometimes that the situation. Hello, Renee. Hello, everybody. So we're just going to start this off. My apologies that this link got moved. Basically, there was some sort of issue with scheduling this ahead of time and having it on my webcam. As you can tell, this is a very high budget production. Hopefully we'll get that a little better microphone, etc., as time goes on. So where we're going to start is why do this? So why are we doing a live stream instead of basically doing a workshop at the site? Well, we are doing a workshop at the site, and we're going to review everything that we do in these 2 live streams. When we get to the site, we're just going to review it super briefly and, maybe do it in a fun, sort of pop quiz sort of way. So you actually tell us more than what we're, talking about. We make it a little more interactive. But why we wanted to do this in a video way, as well as putting it up online and such, is because people have a lot of limited time, especially in North America. A lot of the time, ideally, you will have in different places more time to come in and maybe do an evening of workshops before doing a day of gaming or a weekend of LARPing or a weekend of whatever sort of thing. Let me just cough for a second. So that would be the ideal, but in our situation, a lot of us can't take that kind of time off. It's not always possible to devote like a whole weekend to a vampire game. So, and also a lot of people sometimes, I know this happens with me with my migraines and such. A lot of people have issues that make it difficult for them to have the energy to go through, say, a 3-hour workshop and then go right into 5 hours of standing on their feet and playing a character. And so what we wanted to do here was make this sort of safety stuff and other meta techniques available in a more different kind of ways. So people, we would trust that the participants that we're going to play with would take the time to look at it. We would trust that a review would be great for that, so we can spend some time before the experience together on site, building some trust, building some character, and spending some more time on that. And our hope is just it gives people a lot of ways to engage with and understand the techniques and mechanics, and gives them more opportunity to do so. So if there are any questions, please ask them. Gary is in the chat and we'll pass them on or flag me if there's something super important that I'm missing. And what I'm also going to do right now is paste in the post I've already made about some of the security and safety and stuff. So in the chat. So there's that. And I am going to briefly share to Twitter the link to this, and then I will just get back to talking. But hello, everybody. Thank you again for coming. I just did a brief intro if you came in late, and I'm just about to get into some conversation. I'm sorry everything is so dark, actually. Can you turn on the overhead light, Gary, just so it's not like there? Yeah, that's a little better. It looks, I guess it looked vampire spooky, but I really looked like a floating head. So that's a little bit better. All right. Let me just tell the people in Twitter land, thank you for your patience. I really appreciate it. Yes, it is on brand, Renee. I'm a floating head. Floating vampire head. Okay. We are streaming. I hope everybody's well tonight, by the way. We're doing good. It's really wet here in Toronto, so the weather changed very, very quickly, so I have a bit of a headache. So if I seem super out of it, that's, something to do with me. I may be getting hives as well, so ignore that. Anyway, so let's move on. And the basic, what I'm going to start with here, aside from the introduction, and again, please ask questions, anything that you need. First is security. And so that's one thing that we do have that we're pretty happy to have and fortunate we feel to have is the house doorman. And that is actually the character name, the doorman, at Nelly's and at the site will provide in-character and out-of-character security. So Jesse, who is providing this role, is an experienced actor, and he's been a LARPer for a long time. We've known him for a long time, and he's worked as club and event security around the city for 20 years. He's been a bouncer, so he's used to dealing with a lot of different issues in clubs, outside of clubs, and so on and so forth. He's a pretty chill guy. And so we decided that we would ask him to play this in and out of character role. So it's not weird for anyone to address the doorman in or out of character. So if you have any issues and you need to deal with something, it's not a problem for you to talk to Jesse's character. It's not a problem for you to talk to Jesse in general. It's just a very, it wouldn't seem work for you to do. So it's someone that you can have in case you need it. We don't really think that it's going to be a problem. We trust everyone to trust one another and behave appropriately. But if there's issues, we've given Jesse, like, he has license to deal with them. We trust him to deal with them, and we trust him to handle any situation appropriately. If you'd prefer not to speak to him and would prefer a mediator, we are going to, you can speak to either Gary or I, or you can text one of us. We'll provide an emergency text number that Gary can be reached at any point. I will be playing now, so I'll be in character at any point and can be pulled aside as well. So there are at least 2 points of contact in game that you can talk to that would not seem weird to pull aside and say, hey, there's a problem. So yep, we have that available, and Jesse is available through the night. He'll be going through different parts of the house and checking things out. So he'll also check in if there's a problem. So, like, feel free to say to him, no, everything's cool. Or if there is a problem, feel free to say, yeah, I kind of need some help. So that's what he's there for, and we're happy to have him. So again, so we're going to talk about some safety mechanics. Some of them are very basic. Most of them you've probably used before if you've played any sort of game that has more of a collaborative style, or has been implementing safety mechanics, or you've played one of our games in Toronto so far. I went back and forth about using the first one because I find people often don't want to use it. They feel they feel like it's bad or wrong, or they shouldn't stop game. It's always okay to stop game if you need to, whether it's an emergency or it's something to do, you're emotionally stressed out or you don't know what to do. It's always okay to stop game. So the first one that it always stops game is cut. So I'm going to link to that as well. It is a personal safe word as well as an emergency word. Just think of it as cut, like in a movie. So when cut stops action. And yeah, taking care of yourself as a player is never a bad thing, as Renee said. Totally, 100%. Always make sure that you as a player is cared for before anything else. You as a player is more important than the whole event as a game. Anything else, that we're not concerned about that. We're more concerned about you having a good time and taking care of yourself. So that's the main thing. If the game needs to stop, game needs to stop. That's not the end of the world. 100% not the end of the world. The next one is called Look Down, which I can demonstrate, but just to, again, clarify, if you call cut, stop action, like in a movie, cut, that's all it requires. Also, if you don't remember what it is to stop action, it's okay to just say, hey, I need a second. Like, you don't need the magic word to do it. It's perfectly fine. You will probably forget some of these things or all of them. That's okay too. Just as long as you remember sort of to try. That's the main thing, is to make some effort. You can review any of this again. You can watch it. And we're going to have some posters up in the off-game room. And we're going to have this on the blog. So, I mean, you can review it, but also we all screw up and forget it. So that's okay. Don't expect, it's a lot of information to take in. It's going to take some time to learn. So don't expect to know everything right away. So as I was going to say, look down. Look down can be used for a lot of things. It can be used to start off with for opting in and out of scenes. So the way people use it for a lot of time is if you come into a scene and you're like, whoa, this was not what I was expecting. I don't really want to be here. Maybe it's, more murdery than you expected, or maybe it's just not something you wanted to deal with, you can be like, okay, I am going to do this. This means I wasn't here, and I'm going to move my way out of the scene, etc. And I knocked something down. That's fine. Anyway, I'm in a very confined space, and I shouldn't do that. Anyway, so that point is basically with doing look down, you can basically opt in or out of a scene. Opting into a scene is really great if you were basically out of something for a minute and you feel like you should have been there. So if you took a break or you had to use the bathroom or you needed a breath of fresh air, and suddenly say you're in a vampire situation and your whole family or your whole clan or something like that is together and they're having a very important meeting that you obviously should be there for, you can also I was here the whole time, guys, totally not a problem. I would not have missed this. It can be for I was here, I was never here, and it can be used, for something as simple as being out for fresh air, or something as what are you doing? Don't. I'm sorry. I don't know why Gary had to do that. He just felt like something was very important in the middle of that explanation. Yeah, it's fine. Anyway, the point being, you can use the look down mechanic as a calibration mechanic to be in a scene, out of a scene. If in the middle of the scene it takes a turn that you're not necessarily, interested in, you can also just opt out of it in the middle. It's not a problem to use. And I will paste another link about that there. It's pretty simple, and I like it a lot just to be out for a second, honestly. So that is look down. It was not a cat, but a cat may show up at some point. All right, so another one is okay check-in. Usually how you make sure that people know that it's an out-of-game thing is they do it lower. You may have seen some people put a hand over it. Some people just do it here. It's just an okay sign. And the okay check-in is just done to make sure someone's okay. So if someone does this to you, there are basically 3 answers. One is great. So I do this a lot because I will be upset and crying or yelling at people and angry. And people often think that I am actually very, very upset when I'm just having a really good time crying because I'm Finnish. So I will be like, cry, 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 and someone will be like, I'll be like, yeah, great. So if someone does that, if 1 thumbs up, 2 thumbs up, they are fine. They're having a great time. They're enjoying themselves, crying for whatever reason, and that is fine. So sure, let them go on with what they're doing. If they give you or thumbs down, that means no, they're not okay. If they're giving you this, they don't know. And so if you get that, you just ask how you can help. That's it. They don't need to tell you what's wrong. That doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of what can you do to help. So it's a really simple way of making sure that the person that you're seeing is upset is either in character upset or actually upset. And sometimes people need that, because sometimes you will see someone off to the side and really quiet, and you're not sure if they're doing that because it's an in-character thing or not, and you check in and they're not actually okay. They're feeling confused or upset or something about the game, and they need a little help to kind of get back into things. And so it can be very helpful. So I'll add another link about that one. Pronoun correction is really simple. If someone is misgendered, just and they correct your misgendering, say thank you and accept the correction. Continued misgendering should be brought to the attention of the organizers. It's just really simple. There are some places that use sign language to correct the pronoun. I always forget the sign language, so I think it's just easier not to have a hand sign if people's pronouns should be respected. Period, end of story. If you make a mistake, accept the correction with grace. Say thank you. Don't mess it up again. If you continue to mess it up, we have to have a conversation. That's all there is to it. So yeah, please, if you have any issues with that, bring it to my or Gary's attention. And the last thing in terms of safety is just sort of in terms of keeping role play a little separate for people's comfort. And that is the second floor is of the venue has bedrooms, and as such, we're going to restrict the feeding in intimacy role play, even if it's just a discussion of a scene, to the second floor. So people can engage with that role play if they're interested in it, but if they don't want to, they won't have to necessarily bother with it on the first floor. So that's just something that we'll remind people of the night of, but it will be sort of like the upstairs will be sort of the inner sanctum of Nell's. So there is that. Are there any questions so far from anyone? I've gone over those pretty quickly. Anything? Is there anything I've missed, Gary? You have anything to add?
No, I think you covered everything pretty well so far.
Okay. Cool. So if everyone is cool and you have nothing else to ask about, nope. Oh, here we go. Yay, crystal clear. Awesome. My chat is acting weird. I'll just extend it. Okay, great. So next thing we're going to talk about really briefly is consent mechanics. And the consent negotiations we're going to use will have been developed and used successfully in events like End of the Line, New World Magic School, like Convention of Thorns, many other systems, many other games. And including our Night Watch game and a few others as well. And the basic tenet of consent-based play is that no one can do anything to your character without your consent. So that means discipline use, feeding, intimacy, any other any interactions like that require a certain amount of negotiation. The consent negotiations process, it will be different depending on how comfortable people are with one another. It really depends on that, I think. But don't assume that just because some people have a shorthand with one another that everyone will have the shorthand with one another. Because some people are very comfortable with working with one another and they've worked out their consent to a certain extent where they because they're really familiar with each other. Is there anything going on? Sorry.
No, they like the system.
Okay, cool. Because when people get to a certain level of comfort and understand each other to a certain extent, they're able to negotiate things a little more loosely than you might when you don't understand, when you're less comfortable. So it's just, don't assume everyone has the same level of comfort, basically. And guidelines will be provided as to what you can do with your disciplines that you select during character creation, but these will just be guidelines. You can use your disciplines based on the description, but remember also that it's the targeted player who decides what happens in a given scene, though the player using the discipline can certainly make suggestions. So I have a video example of how this might work in a wizard school game. that I will provide a video to watch later, but I'll also explain now. I keep forgetting about this. One moment. One second. So in this LARP, the recipient decides how disciplines affect them and also sort of what else happens to them. So no one can force you to do or say anything without your consent. Scenes that involve violence or feeding also require additional negotiation to make sure everyone's on the same page. In this workshop, in this discussion, we'll discuss how to negotiate consent in these situations. Before we start, we would like to, I'd like to emphasize basically three main principles that guide playing in a consensual manner. Then sort of, it guides playing consensually and in a way that's collaborative. The first principle is players are more important than games. And we already discussed that really briefly, that it's more important that you have a good time and you feel safe than it is that that the game go on or the game happen in a certain way or that the game be, you know, some sort of perfect thing. It's more important that you are safe and you have a good time than the game, than anything about the game. The well-being of you as a player is more important than any scene or plot. The next principle is it's not about you. So if someone doesn't want to play a certain scene or theme, they're not required to explain why, and their boundaries have nothing to do with you, so don't take them personally. And the last piece is every encounter requires negotiation. People's boundaries may change course over the course of the LARP, and that's fine because it's not about you. So for every encounter, negotiate and make sure both parties are on the same page before continuing. So how might you do this? I actually, I went to one thing, one game, the Terminal Benefit, and a player whose name I unfortunately can't remember drew a really cool flowchart that explained the consent negotiation process really well. So I made a chart based on it, and I'm going to put it in here so you guys can look at it. And take a drink for a second. So how you might negotiate consent is if you want to say, I will use a violence suggestion situation, even though we're not going to have violence at this game because it's an Elysium and we care about Elysium in this game. You're going to step out of game briefly and say off game consent negotiation and follow it up with the sort of action you want. So violence, intimacy, romance, etc. So it would be off game consent negotiation, violence. Then you take a small step back, you both can, so you have some space, and you can both take a few seconds to think about that. If someone asks you, how do you feel about violence or consent negotiation violence? You can actually think about that. Do I feel like violence? Do I feel like, you know, beating someone up or being beat up, you know, in a role-playing sense? It's okay to say no. So it's important because sometimes your boundaries off game are different than your characters. Sometimes not, but sometimes they are. So basically what you do is you think about it and you say no thank you or yes please. So say we've got Stitch and Figment, and so Stitch is like, off game, consent negotiation, violence. And Figment's like, Stitch has really big teeth. I don't think I'm interested in that. So he thinks about it for a minute and he's like, no, thank you. And because he said no, thank you, Stitch is a cool guy and is going to say thank you because Figment thought about it and politely gave a response. Now, does this mean they can't keep role playing? No, it just means Stitch can't bite Figment. So they can continue to have a discussion about, how cool Epcot is. Epcot's a great place. Yeah, it's awesome. Blah, 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 blah. Except Stitch is not going to bite Figment. That's how this works. So it's good because Figment set a boundary, and boundaries are important, and Stitch is thanking him for setting a boundary. If you say things like, I don't know, I'm not sure, you don't know what your boundaries are. So it is important to have an actual answer. So if Figment had said, yes, please, to the violence, so Stitch is off game, consent negotiation, violence. Stitch, yes, please. Then Stitch would say, how do you want to play it? This is where Figment would not say, I don't know. He would say, think about what he wants. And Figment would consider that and say, Figment would say, I'm okay with you shaking me, but I don't want you to bite me because your teeth are pretty big. And then Stitch would be, well, I was really hoping to bite you, but that's okay. I can shake you a little bit. That's fine with me. And then they would be fine to go on with the scene like that. There you go. So they can have different ideas about what's okay in the scene, and that's fine. Because, maybe Stitch's teeth are a little big to bite Figment, and maybe Figment is not so interested in that, or maybe Stitch has a better idea after Figment's like, I don't want to be bit. Maybe Stitch is like, well, maybe what I can do is grow extra arms and do something cool. Oh, that's a great idea. So, there's room to negotiate. And by being explicit about boundaries, they find a cool way to negotiate and find something cool to do. And then everybody gets to do what they want. So the main things about this is that it makes people feel safer because this is not about Stitch and it's not about Figment. It's about what Figment needs and what Stitch needs separately. And that's pretty cool. So this is what we do. We don't escalate to a higher degree of comfort than these people state. We try and do things in a collaborative way, and we try and think of something that makes everybody happy. So another one you can see in the chart is basically like, I'm okay with holding hands and talking about romantic things. And the other person is like, I'm fine with that, but I'm not good with any other physical touch. And that's okay as well. So these are ways you can negotiate things. Some people are more comfortable with more physical stuff. Some people are comfortable with less, and that is all fine. And that's how, especially for a game like this, you can negotiate things like, even if you're playing in a place where there's a lot of feeding, you can say, I'm only comfortable with discussing feeding, or I'm comfortable with feeding at the wrist and doing this, so on and so forth. So, are there any questions about consent mechanics or for Figment and Stitch at this point? So far, no. Because this is all I basically have for right now. And we're going to do it again, I think, on Facebook Live this time in a couple of weeks, just to make sure we get it done again. But if anybody has any questions right now about consent, about safety, about anything, please let me know. I'm here, and we're set to be here for a little while longer, so I'm happy to do so. Yeah, that was about it that we had to discuss tonight. So please, questions. If you need to go, please go. If you are watching this later, thank you very much. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening and watching me and my Disney buddies. Yeah, this is actually Renee has a question about costuming in the chat. It is not Victorian. This is modern day. So depending on when the age of your character, when we do character gen on Friday, like Saturday the weekend, like yeah, you can dress however you like depending on your character's age. So modern day is fine. If your character is older, that is fine. If you want to do, yeah.
Well, it's an Elysium too, so
It's
encouraged.
oh yeah. Gary points out that and he was making sure to point this out before as well. It is an Elysium, and Elysiums in fifth ed are where vampires are encouraged to be themselves as much as possible. So vampires are encouraged to be monstrous and glamorous and hideous and fabulous and all of the things that they are. So yeah, feel free to bring out whatever it is you want. And this place is pretty awesome, so you will not look out of place at all. And cough again. I coughed into the microphone. I'm sorry. Can't wait to make your character. Yay! Okay. Yes. Yes, we will have that very, very soon. We'll have that Friday for sure.
I think all of us do.
I think we all have a lot of stuff in our closet, probably. I just did it so I could wear my. I did this LARP so I could wear my Victorian ball gown again from College of Wizardry, partially so I could play vampire. The venue has. Night, Renee. We love you. And the venue has not been changed since it became secret. It's just it needs to be not publicized. That is the only thing. It just needs to be not publicized. So it has not been changed. It is in the same place. Stitch is not a character in the LARP, though I could make him one. But I will not. I'm looking at the characters in the LARP now. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I will give you another minute. But if you have nothing else, I will run away. And you can always ask us questions on Facebook. You can always ask us questions at info@firstescapestudios.com. Oh, okay. Some narrative animation event during the evening. There will be something to open the night. There will be through the evening something to mark the passing of time. So the passing of phases of the LARP will be to mark it. And we'll do some workshops before the LARP that will be to part of the reason we did these live streams is so we have time to do some more workshops before the LARP that are more based on the characters coming together. So having more sort of character group meetings and meetings with the clans and things like that, so people can build relationships both not only online, but also when they get to the venue, they can talk to one another, and we'll have some exercises to do that together. So there'll be a little bit where you can definitely, like, we can facilitate people talking to each other through the group for a couple of weeks before the LARP. But once you get there as well, we'll have some exercises and some workshops to get everyone sort of knowing each other and having some connections with one another. Cool. I'm glad that answered your question. Awesome. Now there's a cat. All right, me and my assistants say good evening to you. Gary says good evening to you, I'm sure as well. Thank you so much for everything. We can't wait either. We are very, very excited. And we will be on, I have a YouTube link right now, but I think we're going to switch to Facebook Live. So we will be on Facebook Live on Sunday, January 20th at 3 p.m. to go over this again. So if there's anything that was unclear or need a better explanation or et cetera, we let us know and we will go over that again. So yeah, and you can rewatch this at any point and rewatch the live stream then. So thank you so much for watching. Good evening all, and we're really looking forward to you guys getting your characters and seeing us soon. Okay, bye. Mwah.